Okay, it's a little after 5:30, so we will come to order. We have a list of individuals who signed up to make comments this evening, and we will start as you signed up. And who's the first one? Rachel?
Holmack, yep.
Okay, yeah, 5 minutes, man.
Rachel Holmack, a Madison City resident. A little bit about myself. I worked in the dental field for over 13 years, specifically pediatrics. I also taught in the dental field for 7 of those 13 years, and so I'm very well versed in this line of work. While working in pediatric dentistry, I worked in 3 different states in many different areas, including areas where fluoride was not in the water. I also worked at the Children's Hospital, where we would intubate children because their dental need was so severe. And I can tell you that with over a decade experience, the children whom came in with the most caries were simply those that neglected dental hygiene. That's it, not the fluoride. If parents didn't brush and floss their kids' teeth, well, they showed up at our office. I have 2 children, and both have not had fluoridated water in their system for their entire lives. We double filter all of our water in our home. Our children even take their own water supply to school and everywhere we go. And guess what? Not a single cavity. Why? Because I brush and floss their teeth every single night. And fun fact, did you know that you don't have to brush twice a day? It takes 24 hours for plaque to build up on your teeth. So as long as you just brush every 24 hours, you're good. So just another lie that dentists tell everybody. It's just for the toothpaste and toothbrush companies to make double the revenue, so you double up on everything. I personally have been brushing my teeth just once a day for over 25 years, and my hygienist tells me how much she loves it when I come in because it's like a break for her because she has so little to clean. Keep believing the lies that they feed you so that they can make a buck. Anyway, here's some other facts. There are over 202,000 dentists in America. Less than 250 actively do not use fluoride within their practice or recommend it in the drinking water. There is only 1 in the state of Alabama and a few in Atlanta. So this is about less than 0.1% of all dentists, and you have to ask yourself why. So most non-critical thinkers would just blindly assume it's because it must be true. Fluoride must be just so amazing, but it's not. We've learned very recently with the COVID scamdemic that many medical professionals are placed in a chokehold due to forced compliance bullying, typically motivated by money, obviously. There's a reason so many of us no longer trust the medical establishment. It was revealed in the JAMA network that a significant decline in trust in medical and dental professionals and hospitals had occurred since COVID, dropping from 71.5% to a whopping 40.1%. It's because people are finally waking up to all the lies that we have been exploited to believe. Turns out that, I guess as Moira put it, the wackadoodles were right. Just last September, a U.S. federal court officially ruled that the fluoridation chemicals added to the public water supplies pose an unreasonable risk to human health, particularly to the development of brains in children. The ruling in a landmark decision made by Judge Edward Chen of the U.S. District Court in California ruled that water fluoridation violates the Toxic Substance Control Act due to the significantly established risk of neurodevelopmental harm. This is the first time in human history that a federal court has ruled that adding fluoride to public water supplies is not just ineffective, but it's unsafe under federal chemical safety law. Trust me, there will be more to come, and I am living for it. The plaintiffs, supported by over 100 peer-reviewed studies, so if somebody comes at you and says, oh, what are you talking about, just one little study? No. Over 100 peer-reviewed studies successfully argued that fluoride exposure, especially during pregnancy, can impair cognitive development in children, lowering their IQ points by 6 on average. The most comprehensive review of fluoridation to date, published by the Cochrane Collaboration, found that modern evidence supporting fluoride in the drinking water is just, well, weak at best. Out of 155 studies, only 3 met modern scientific standards. What's the benefit in those case studies? Well, just 0.3% fewer decayed teeth per child in fluoridated areas. That's it, 0.3. Okay, of all the people here speaking in favor of keeping fluoride in the water, I'd just like to ask an honest question. Have you actually researched the harmful effects of ingesting fluoride? I'm not talking about placing it topically. Have you looked at actual statistics and research behind this, or are you just going with the flow because it's what we've been doing since 1991? Because if you've read what I've read, you would be angry and horrified. So far, I've heard people defending fluoride because, well, we've done it since 1991. Okay, just because you've done something for an extended period of time doesn't mean that it's a valid excuse to continue it. I've also heard people talking about how many people rinse their mouth after they brush their teeth with fluoride toothpaste, even though it says on the label not to rinse your mouth for at least 30 minutes, and that's the reason why we should keep fluoride in the water. Why? Because people can't read simple instructions? We should just poison everybody? Okay, make it make sense. And one more thing. If fluoride in the water is so freaking amazing, why are all the dentists still in business? Just think about it.
David?
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to express my opinions on the current water issues. My name is Margie Daly. I'm a 21-year homeowner in District 6. My concerns extend far beyond the fluoride issue. The current state of our water supply, plagued by corrosion, is unacceptable. I do not want this water to enter our homes or subject our employees or families to the harmful effects. I am against replacing the fluoride. I have several issues that I'd like to pose, but I do not anticipate immediate responses. I would simply appreciate the opportunity to read through my statement. With the weekend rain, I saw an MU crew open Cliff and Marion, the southwest corner. I'm not sure if that's our water supply or if it's the water waste. But what I saw in there was a small round PVC pipe. And to me, this really concerns me because District 6, we have some houses from the 1960s. My house was built in '88. But we've put a lot more homes on there with the Everstead behind City Hall and Windermere off Shelton. And if we only have 6-inch round PVC pipes feeding our water, with the groundwater seeping in on top, that my subdivision really needs some kind of modernization. So number one, I have the drainage and water waste. And I do have some clips and pictures of what's going on in Madison City, because I cycle around after the rain and take pictures of what you guys are flooding. I often speak at council meetings regarding the recent revocations of drainage easements. These easements have been vacated indiscriminately, leading to flooding in our area. This practice is ineffective and has resulted in water being diverted onto homes and businesses. I have attached several photos that I will show at the end. My number 2 issue are the smart meters. Regarding the smart meters, I publicly requested a delay in their implementation until they were more refined. Instead, you opted for inferior, partial meters that contain defects, potentially created in someone's garage. Anyone who was incorrectly billed due to these defective meters should not be required to pay for their imperfections. Several residents expressed their opposition to smart meters, and we requested exemptions and time for technology to advance. However, your decision was to proceed with the implementation of these defective devices. We need an opt-out option until technology improves. This is an official second public request for an opt-out option. MU owes us answers. The burden of cost should be borne by those who disregard the public's concerns, allowed antiquated technology, and ultimately provided us with faulty smart meters. The number 3 issue is the fluoride additive. Will this merely provide a temporary solution? Could it result in increased cost? Was the initial quote of $500,000 a bid or an in-house estimate? Additionally, I'd like to inquire about the financial status of MU. It would have been more transparent if you had disclosed this information in our bills. We pay high rates, franchise fees, and taxes. Does MU generate a profit? Does anyone receive dividends? If a memo or insert had been included in our bills, or had the city council publicly announced this major decision to the public, this situation would not appear as shady. The optics could indicate a cover-up or possibly something hidden from the public. I believe the residents deserve a comprehensive plan that allows us to view the city's water system plans, specifications, and some kind of a master water plan. I am concerned that the situation is far more dire than it appears, as the city continues to issue permits for cluster bills that pose significant risk to the current residents' water supply. These developments jeopardize our water quality, lead to flooding, result in continued price increases despite diminishing services and providing low-quality water. I request a comprehensive public view of the entire plan for the future water purification and wastewater management, including the proposed budget. Would it be more cost-effective to implement this piecemeal solution or to simply rectify an antiquated and dysfunctional system? Do we have viable options? Is the
Time's
future...
up, ma'am.
Okay, I do have, my last thing was toxins in the ground. I feel it's really important because we're allowing developers to poison the trees, and that has to stop to clear their land cheaply. Thank you.
Okay. Rico? Mispronounce it?
Riccio.
Riccio, I'm sorry.
I'm gonna let you pass around the picture. Of what is happening in our city. Sorry.
Thank you all for allowing me to speak this evening. Initially, I was simply going to thank the Water Board for their, what I believe to be an intelligent decision to eliminate the fluoride from the water in Madison, based on the proven toxicity of its residents. However, as well as to employees of the water company and the expense, which has been stated as roughly $14,000 per year, not including recurring maintenance costs reportedly close to $500,000 due to the destruction that it causes to city equipment. But since the city council member took it upon themselves to instigate opposition to the decision, then I felt it necessary to state a few facts for the board to hear. I keep hearing that one of the big concerns for residents is that poor people cannot obtain dental care. This is inaccurate. Medicaid in all 50 states is required to provide comprehensive dental benefits for children under 21 years of age, which includes fluoride treatments beginning at 6 months of age. In a 43-page government document outlining what Medicaid is responsible for regarding dental coverage for children states the following. Parents and caregivers play a critical role in maintaining good oral health and establishing proper oral hygiene habits. Once caregivers understand that tooth decay is caused by an infectious, transmissible, and diet-dependent disease, they can take multiple steps to reduce their child's exposure to bacteria and its effects. From monitoring and minimizing intake of sugary foods to performing daily dental care for infants and young children, to resisting the urge to share utensils or engage in other activities that could transfer bacteria from the caregiver's saliva to the child's mouth. Parental involvement is critical. This is from Kids Keep Smiling, promoting oral health with Medicaid benefit for children and adolescents. Dr. Lori Wilson of Montgomery, Alabama has noted, and has been noted as commenting, that there is an increase in decaying cavities due to high sugar diets. So why are we not working to eliminate sugar from children's diets as a preventative measure? Florida and Utah have recently passed bills that will eliminate fluoride from all drinking water in these states based on some studies. The National Toxicity Program released a report in August 2024, concluding that fluoride exposure above 1.5 milligrams per liter of exposure is associated with lower IQ in children. Under the Safe Drinking Water Act, EPA sets the standards that limit substances in drinking water provided by public water systems. The current standard is 4.0 milligrams of fluoride per liter. One can say that the water in Madison is tested to show fluoride well under this level. However, according to Food and Water Watch in a court case in the Northern District of California, water fluoridation at the level of 0.7 milligrams per liter, the prescribed optimal level of fluoridation in the United States, presents an unreasonable risk of injury to health or the environment without consideration of costs or other non-risk factors. Madison's last water report from 2023 is 0.15 parts per million, which equals 0.14 milligrams per liter. That is well above 0.7. The Fluoride Action Network, FAN, is a nonprofit organization that is dedicated to education and disbursement of information on Toxicity of fluoride. They maintain the largest database showing toxicity in blood, bone, brain, heart, kidney, liver, lung, reproductive systems, and the thyroid gland. In 2006, the National Research Council of the National Academies concluded that fluoride has the ability to interfere with brain function and labeled it an endocrine disruptor. As of 2019, there are 60 studies on fluoride, 53 of which show lower IQ in children consuming fluoride compared to communities with children with lower fluoride exposure. The average points lower were 7. A U.S. government-funded study carried out by lead researcher Dr. Morteza Bashash confirmed that fluoride is a neurotoxin at levels currently being consumed. This same study showed an association between symptoms of ADHD in children and fluoride levels in the urine of pregnant women. And just to note exactly what the fluoride being put in our drinking water is, it is not the naturally occurring substance known as calcium fluoride. The fluoride added to drinking water is a waste byproduct of phosphate fertilizer production called hydrofluorosilic acid, which is an inorganic compound. This product is highly corrosive and requires stringent safety protocols in order to use, which include properly ventilated work environments, personal protective equipment such as chemical-resistant suits, full face shields, as well as chemical splash goggles. By removing fluoride, citizens still have choices to use fluoride in other products. By continuing to put fluoride in the city drinking water, you remove all choice for those who want it. If anybody wants this, I have all the studies linked. I can also email you guys if you want.
Remion. Thank you.
Remion, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
sir.
Apologize for that.
No problem. Good evening to y'all. Gonna be brief here. My name's Ben Gremion. Just as an aside, I used to work in a factory that handled chemicals. Some of them were pretty dangerous. And that's where I learned that the federal government requires any chemical shipped in the United States, either by truck, train, boat, barge, whatever, has to come with paperwork on the manifest to indicate whether that substance is deadly or dangerous, and how do you fight fires if it causes fires and whatnot. It's called a Material Safety Data Sheet, otherwise known as the MSDS. In 2012, we were out here in front of the water board doing the same thing, and I asked for a copy of the MSDS for the fluoride they put in our water, and my request was refused. So tonight, just for giggles, I printed up one off the internet because that stuff is on there. A lot of this is, I'm sure a lot of you know about this, but let me just read off. This is from the manufacturer. Nice skull and crossbones on here, and just read off here effects of this. Eye contact, extremely corrosive. This product causes corneal scarring, glaucoma, cataracts, and may cause permanent blindness. Ingestion, it's a corrosive. Fluoride may cause pulmonary edema, fluorosis, hypocalcemia, shock, central nervous system depression, coma, and death. And this is the part that I thought was really interesting. It actually says here on their paperwork, fluoride is a bone seeker, and excessive amounts will produce weakening and degeneration of the bone structure. Chronic exposure, like drinking a little water every day, may cause accumulation of fluorine in the teeth and bones. Severe fluorosis in children weakens tooth enamel, resulting in surface pitting. After prolonged high intake in adults, bony changes occur characterized by hardening or abnormal density of bone and calcification of ligaments, tendons, and muscle attachments to the bone. Ingestion and skin contact may cause an abnormal reduction in blood calcium and kidney damage, since fluorides precipitate calcium stored in the body. There may also be heart, asthma, nerve, intestinal, and rheumatism problems. This is the warnings on the manufacturer's paperwork. Putting a substance such as fluoride into the city's water supply, I believe, is a foolish, maybe even criminal idea. What moral person, or especially like a medical professional, would think of giving somebody a substance, calling it maybe a medicine, prescribing something to someone, and never even looking at the individual or examining them at least. We've been doing this. If you work in a water treatment plant, you know, y'all all work for the water department. Surely you've seen your material handlers, people that run the forklifts. You've seen them, you know, fluoride is a poison. You see the skull and crossbones on the side of the containers it comes in. The workers who put the fluoride in water probably have to wear so much protective equipment. They look like NASA astronaut, like this lady just pointed out. Fluoride's dangerous stuff. It's corrosive enough to destroy the water treatment plant and the health of anyone exposed to it. The people who work here, you guys already know this stuff doesn't belong in the water. I just think the ending of water fluoridation is the right decision, no matter what the reason. We're trying to save money or save everybody's health. Just thanks for doing the right thing tonight.
Madison?
No, we have Mr. Andrews.
That's right, you're right.
So I'm the Mrs. Part. Hi, my name is Robin Grimion. My family and I have lived in Madison since 2001, and I have worked as a radar engineer in Huntsville and on Redstone Arsenal for almost 30 years. I want to thank the Water Board for having the courage to vote unanimously to stop the addition of fluoride to our drinking water. No matter your reason, I completely agree with you. I have 3 basic areas I'd like to cover very quickly. One, how our water is being used as a drug delivery system. 2, where the fluoride actually comes from. And 3, what the current science says about ingesting fluoride. So first, fluoride is being added to the water supply because of its supposed benefit in preventing cavities. That means it is being used as a drug, and adding a drug to the water supply is considered mass medication. This poses serious moral and ethical questions because you are medicating people without their consent. Furthermore, there is no dosage control. That is, there's no consideration for weakened populations, differences in sensitivity to the drug, or even how much water you consume. It is also not the same as adding iodine to salt or vitamin D to milk. Those are essential nutrients. Fluoride is not. And it is not the same as adding chlorine to water. Chlorine makes the water safe to drink. Fluoride does not. Plus, chlorine is easily removed with common filters such as Brita or Pure. Fluoride is not. Secondly, where does the fluoride added to our water come from? Well, it comes from industrial waste generated by aluminum and fertilizer factories. The EPA does not allow them to vent this waste into the air or dump it into rivers because it is so toxic. So their solution to pollution is dilution, straight into your drinking water. You can Google it for yourself, it's no secret. Even fluoride supporters acknowledge where it comes from. They just prefer to call it a byproduct. But make no mistake, it is toxic industrial waste and is often contaminated with other toxic products such as arsenic and lead. And just because fluoride is a natural element does not mean it is good for you. After all, arsenic and lead are natural elements too. And fluoride has been used historically as a rat poison and is still used today as an industrial pesticide. Even in your local water quality reports sent to you each year by Madison Utilities, fluoride is listed as a contaminant alongside arsenic, lead, and cyanide. So finally, my third topic is the current science on fluoride and its harms. These fall into 2 main categories. First category is for adults. Chronic, low-level exposure to fluoride over the years is associated with a greater risk of hypothyroidism. Symptoms include fatigue, weight gain, joint and muscle pain, depression, memory problems, and much more. Levothyroxine, also known as Synthroid, is in the top 5 of the most prescribed medicines in the U.S. Levothyroxine is used to treat that same hypothyroidism, which we now know is associated with fluoridation. The second main area of harm is for children. Fluoride exposure in utero, infancy, or childhood is directly related to neurological problems, including reduction of the child's IQ and increases in ADHD, anxiety, depression, and autism. JAMA, that's the Journal of the American Medical Association, pediatrics physician editor even said, "I would not have my wife drink fluoridated water if she were pregnant." In August 2024, the National Toxicology Program completed its multi-year review of the recent science. NTP is part of the National Institutes of Health and is the highest level scientific review in the country. Its monograph concluded that higher water fluoridation levels are consistently associated with lower IQ in children. Several of the studies found this link at levels in fluoridated water, 0.7 parts per million. In September of 2024, after a 7-year science-based trial, and on the heels of the NTP report, The court ruled that water fluoridation poses an unreasonable risk of reduced IQ in children, and ordered the EPA to take action to eliminate this risk. In April of 2025, just last month, the EPA confirmed they will be doing exactly that. How can anyone still be in denial about this? So to recap, we're adding fluoride to the water supply for the purpose of mass medication without consent or dosage control. The same type of fluoride is a rat poison and pesticide and is sourced from the waste products of aluminum and fertilizer factories. And the current science shows plenty of harm. This harm includes chronic effects on adults such as fatigue, weight gain, joint and muscle pain, depression, memory problems, and so on. But the harm to children is so much more profound because it is irreversible. As it involves the development of a child's brain. We're talking reduced IQ, ADHD, even autism. That's why Utah just became the first state to ban fluoridation, and Florida will be the second, while several other state legislatures are also considering similar bills. I'm not saying fluoride is the only culprit for all of our ills, but it's certainly a critical factor and is such an easy one to fix. Just stop the fluoridation. Thank you.
Masterson.
Hi, my name's Mark Masterson, and I'm a resident of the city of Madison, and I have practiced pediatric dentistry in this city for over 20 years. So I'd love to give you the ayes permission when this issue comes up. First, thank you, board, for taking it serious for all sides to be able to voice their opinions tonight. If there is one group that this decision will impact the most, it will be the children of our community, I assure you. Scientifically, we only have one period in life that we can benefit these children with fluoridation. It's the development of their enamel, and it starts from prenatal and goes to about age 7 or 8. After that, all of their enamel formation is complete. Topical fluoride is a good adjunct, but it is not a substitute for this, what we call fluoroapatite, which is absolutely a stronger form of enamel. What we also know is that other communities have made a similar decision only to reverse it because of what happened to the children of their community. In Juneau, Alaska, in Calgary, in Vancouver, within the past 15 to 17 years, did exactly this. They removed the fluoride only to reverse it. Within 3 to 5 years, an increase of dental decay for these children from 50 to up to 63% was reported. Now, we talk about costs. Where does this cost shift to then? For the children, it's missed school and missed school hours and missed educational opportunities due to pain, problems, treatment, and recovery. For parents, it's not only out-of-pocket costs for them, but also the cost of them having to miss work and productivity. In essence, if you remove fluoride for cost, you're essentially passing it on to young families of this community. The emotional plea I want to make to you is for the group who is most vulnerable in all of this. The children who, for whatever reason, will not receive dental care or dental evaluation or dental oversight. The only chance they may have is some supplementation that we can offer them that may be the only thing that gives them any protection against dental decay. I assure you, if they develop problems, they will be the ones who suffer the most and quietly. As long as I've been here, Madison Utilities has had a great record of cooperation with the guidelines that have benefited all of their citizens. And my hope is that credible science will be considered and the benefits of this therapeutic success that has been around since the 1940s and has 80 decades of literature that supports this and not just claims of a speculation. I ask that you please do not take this way at the expense of our children. I have a 1-year-old grandson right now who this will affect if it's removed. I don't want to ship water in from Huntsville for him to drink. I want him to have it here. And I want his classmates to have it here. So within 3 to 5 years, if this happens, we know in the dental community what we'll be doing. We're not here because it's benefiting us. We're here because it's benefiting these kids. So I ask, please do this for their benefit. Thank you.
Stoner. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. I am here today as a scientist. I have worked as a senior scientist at the Hudson Alpha Institute for 13 years. This is a polarizing issue. We have heard already tonight quite a bit of misinformation, and we heard that at the city council meeting as well. And that's why I'm here, because I want to stand up for science. Unfortunately, we now live in a world where misinformation and pseudoscience is disseminated very effectively and very convincingly by people in positions of power. The result is that trust in science has been eroded. This is why fluoridation has now become this polarizing issue, when the reality is that it's been a safe and incredibly effective practice for 80 years. And this is why it is so important that we be very careful about the science that we choose to trust, especially in situations like this. It can be really hard for people who lack a certain level of science literacy to differentiate quality evidence-based research from low-quality research. And when information is presented to us by people in positions of power, it can be hard to determine if it's been presented truthfully or if it's been misrepresented or taken out of context to fit a predetermined false narrative. Tonight, we've already heard a couple of people talk about the National Toxicology Report, which came out last August, that concluded that higher fluoride exposure was associated with lower IQ in children. This was presented to us as an absolute truth. Fluoride in drinking water causes lower IQ in children, and that sounds really scary. But here's what we weren't told. The NTP report took 6 years to publish because it failed peer review multiple times. It was only published after extensive revision. It's not even a research study, it's a qualitative assessment looking for associations, not causation. There is a big difference there. There's a graph you can find online that shows that shark attacks are strongly associated with ice cream sales. It's seasonal, it actually makes sense, but do we then assume that ice cream causes shark attacks and then ban ice cream sales? No, absolutely not. We're also not told that this was an incredibly complicated assessment with many confounding factors that the authors acknowledge, like socioeconomic, genetic, or environmental factors that could have affected the outcome. Additionally, the studies included overall fluoride exposure, not just fluoride from drinking water alone. Most importantly, none of the studies included in the report were from the United States. They were all from other countries like China and India, where fluoride levels in water are significantly higher than they are in the US. The authors of the report even state that the results are not applicable to the US, where fluoride levels are less than half what was considered by the report. There is no evidence that fluoride at levels in the US water supply causes lower IQ in children, and the NTP report that people love to cite actually supports that conclusion. We've heard people claim that fluoride is a neurotoxin. I want to remind everyone that the dose makes the poison. Anything is toxic at high levels. Dihydrogen monoxide, also known as water, is essential to sustain life, but it will kill you if you drink too much of it. So when we're told that fluoride in water is toxic or that it causes lower IQ in children, it's not just misinformation, it's fear-mongering. We cannot give in to fear-mongering. When we do that, people are harmed. 2 children died in Texas recently from a vaccine-preventable disease because their communities gave into fear-mongering. We are better than that. I hope the Water Board will revisit this decision to discontinue fluoridation. I don't see how the board could have made a good faith, informed decision with no input from experts who could speak about the safety and necessity of fluoridation, and with no input from the community. But if this decision stands, I hope that the board will help us to understand their reasons why. Because from where I'm sitting, it feels like more value was placed on dollars, on convenience, and possibly on misinformation than on the health and the well-being of Madison citizens. Thank you.
Knox.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I wanted to touch on 3 topics. First of all, I stand in favor of the move to remove fluoride from our water. My decision and my stances are grounded in scientific evidence and practical concerns. that prioritize the health of our community, our personal choice of the residents, and legal prudence. Fluoride's benefits are overstated in the context of modern dental care. A 2015 Cochrane review found that water fluoridation's impact on reducing tooth decay is limited, particularly in areas with widespread access to fluoridated toothpaste and dental services, as we are in Madison. Topical fluoride, not ingestion, is the primary mechanism for cavity prevention, as even the CDC acknowledges. Ingesting fluoride provides minimal additional benefit while exposing residents to systemic risks. Recent scientific findings raise serious questions about fluoride safety at the current U.S. standard of 0.7 milligrams per liter. A landmark federal court ruling in Food and Water Watch versus the EPA from September of 2024 found that fluoridation at this level, at only 0.7 milligrams per liter, poses an unreasonable risk to public health, particularly to children's neurodevelopment. The court cited studies such as the 2019 JAMA pediatric study showing that prenatal fluoride exposure is linked to a 4 to 5 point IQ reduction. And I just want to point out that that was a legal decision, not just a scientific study. So a judge looked at all the evidence and decided that fluoride needed to be out of the water for those reasons. These findings challenge the assumption that 0.7 milligrams per liter is universally safe, especially for populations like pregnant women. Removing fluoride now mitigates legal risks. The Food and Water Watch ruling mandates EPA regulation of fluoride under the Toxic Substances Control Act, signaling potential liability for municipalities like Madison continuing fluoridation amid evidence of harm. By acting proactively, Madison can avoid costly lawsuits and align with the growing trend of communities like those in Utah, North Alabama, and soon to be Florida, banning fluoride to safeguard public health and limit legal exposure. Ethically, fluoridation raises concerns about choice. It delivers an uncontrolled dose to all residents without consent, despite viable alternatives like toothpaste. Madison has fluoridated since 1991, but science and law have evolved. Upholding your decision to end fluoridation demonstrates leadership, protects the community, and shields the city from emerging legal risks. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Patrick?
Kathy?
Yes.
Thank you also for having this public hearing and letting us speak and give our opinions. My name is Kathy Patrick. I live in Madison in the Stateville Estates neighborhood, and I've been a resident of Madison and a water customer for 12 years. I have a chemical engineering degree from the University of Alabama. I've spent 25 years working in chemical plants. I'm not an expert on water treatment, but with my background working in a plant environment, I understand very well why the utility managers and the water board voted the way they did in March. I've seen corrosion in the plant I work in. I appreciate that you value the health of your employees and the condition of the plant equipment. I believe you voted correctly to improve employee health, reduce corrosion of the equipment, reduce downtime, and reduce potential accidents due to faulty equipment. That's what intelligent plant managers, and that's just what they do. I feel like both sides of this issue are pretty well dug into their opinions, and I think it's really sad that this has become a political issue. It's really a question of public health and personal choice. I'm certainly not an expert on fluoride, but I'm smart enough to think for myself, just as most people in this room are. We keep hearing how Madison is a highly educated community, but we're comparing ourselves to the other Big Ten cities in Alabama to see what they're doing. Why? It's a bit ironic to say how smart we are on one hand and then say, well, we shouldn't do this because other cities in Alabama haven't done it yet. I think removing fluoride is a very smart decision, and I'm gonna be very proud of Madison if we're the first Big Ten city to do this. I wanna switch gears a little bit and talk about risk and risk management. Risk management is something that every industry and organization deals with. I'm an engineer, just like probably some people in this room. When I worked at a nuclear chemical separations facility in South Carolina, we factored in a large degree of conservatism into our calculations to ensure that everything we did had a high margin of safety built in. Boeing is not the best example, but my husband works for Boeing, and the engineers at Boeing also use a high safety margin built into their designs and structural analysis, and the recent failures were not design problems. Why do we do this? People make mistakes, and it's better to err on the side of safety because we value the lives of the pilots and the lives of the passengers. We value the lives of people in our community. And we've seen what happens when we don't abide by this principle of erring and using this margin of safety. So what does any of this have to do with fluoride? Well, it actually has a lot to do with it, and it's the posture that we have towards safety and the consideration of errors that people make and making choices that provide the safest outcomes for the highest number of people. In policy making, it's called the precautionary principle. The precautionary principle is a fundamental approach to decision making, particularly in environmental and public health contexts, that emphasizes taking preventative action even when scientific uncertainty exists about potential risks. Now, we've heard people say, I've heard some people say, oh, there's only one study out there. We've heard other people say there's 100 studies out there. There is a link between, now I don't know how much fluoride in the water causes it, I can't say that, but the precautionary principle dictates that when there's a threat of serious harm to human health or the environment is suspected, measures should be taken to prevent or mitigate the harm, even if the scientific evidence of cause and effect is not fully established. Now, I don't know if this played a part in the board's decision to remove the fluoride, but I believe that it should. That should be a consideration. Multiple studies have shown fluoride consumption to have an impact to IQ in multiple ways. It doesn't matter if the study had a higher concentration than the fluoride we have in our water. The studies show a link between fluoride consumption and lower IQ. If we were to follow the precautionary principle, we would say that impacting mental function of our residents and customers is a greater harm to the community than possible cavities. It doesn't really matter to me what y'all decide. I have an RO filter. I paid $600 for it. My question is, how many of the poor people in the community can afford to remove the fluoride? And I would hope that the dental community would find better solutions to provide people with fluoride besides putting in a water supply.
Hi, my name is Paul Jackson. I live in District 6. I have a lot that I would like to say, but a little bit of quick context. I'm an expectant father, and I'm in support of fluoridated water. I would like to use my time tonight to address one of the common arguments that we might hear from those in favor of removal, we have heard it, and possibly provide a counter to that evidence. So I want to address two studies that were referenced last Monday at the City Council meeting regarding the effects of fluoridated water on the IQ scores of children. The first was a study from 2019 out of Canada that discusses the supposed effects of fluoridated water consumed by pregnant mothers on their children's IQ. The authors of the study concluded that when they looked at the residual fluoride in a mother's collected urine, that there was a 4.5 point reduction in IQ for male and not female children that correlated to 1 milligram per liter increase in fluoride in the water, or in the urine. This is a correlation, not necessarily a causation. If you look at the average IQ of the children from the fluoridated and non-fluoridated groups, the values are almost identical, 108.07 versus 108.21 respectively. In fact, if you look at the figures, it's only in the areas with the highest amounts of fluoride that you see any IQ lowering. And the range of error on that IQ value would include the average of the non-fluoridated children's IQ. And at no point does the study address why this would be seen in male children, but not in female children. one would expect that it would be the same if the only factor at play is the fluoride. A second study that was brought up that I wanted to discuss was released in January of this year. This was actually a paper that took 74 studies and analyzed them together, hoping to negate the flaws of each individual study. There are issues with this. For one, none of these studies took place in the United States, and many took place in locations where regulation of the water supply is a lot weaker. 45 of these 74 studies took place in China. The results of the paper are unimpressive. Inverse relationships between IQ and fluoridation were predominantly seen at levels over 2 milligrams per liter, with even the authors themselves indicating that the results were limited and uncertain at levels below 1.5 milligrams per liter. As a reminder, the level here in Madison is 0.7 milligrams per liter. The fact that the authors themselves cast doubt on the data at the lower levels should speak volumes as to its relevance to our area. And even if you count the totality of the results using those massively elevated levels, the IQ score decreases were measured at a measly 1.14 to 1.63 points. The standard deviation for IQ is 15 points. But obscured by all of this is a couple fundamental questions. What is IQ? What does it measure? And does it matter? IQ stands for intelligence quotient, and it's simply a measure of a person's reasoning ability. It's a tool that is used by psychologists to help determine what sort of assistance one might need in learning. They are also flawed. IQ tests measure the potential determined by the particular test on the particular day at the particular point in time within the context of a particular culture. Many things can affect IQ scores. A lack of sleep can affect your IQ score. We all feel a little bit groggier in the morning when we haven't had our coffee, for example. Eating breakfast can affect these results. For that reason, we normally think of the results of IQ tests in terms of ranges instead of single numbers. 2/3 of all test takers will fall between 85 and 115, which is a full 30-point difference. So when we're talking about potential relationships between fluoride and IQ, just bear in mind we're dealing with something very small within a massive range of what's considered normal. And also note that these tests only measure potential. They don't account for a lot of other things that contribute to a person's individual success, such as ambition, motivation, opportunity, how your family prioritizes education in the home. There's lots of other variables that account for IQ. I think using studies like these to discredit the proven benefits of fluoridated water is wrong. Many studies, show that it is beneficial. Someone mentioned Juneau earlier. A study in Alaska showed that when Juneau removed its fluoride, households spent 47% more on childhood dental procedures than households in fluoridated Anchorage. The odds of a child needing dental procedures increased in Juneau by 25%. I'm sure others will cite more data and speak to the cost of it all. I wish I had more time, but I don't. I urge the board to rescind this decision and keep our water fluoridated for all of our children's health.
Well, my name is Michael Goodman. I've been a resident of Madison, Alabama since 1986. At the most recent city council meeting, water manager David Moore mentioned that the repairs to the current fluoridation system will cost about $500,000, and that the annual cost of fluoridated water is $14,000. Now, I'm assuming that those repairs will last for at least 5 years. I don't know, but I mean, this was not an annual cost. I got the impression it was just a one-time $500,000 to repair the system. So if you take that $500,000 and divide that by the roughly 20,000 households in Madison, that comes to $25 per household. But then spread that over 5 years, and then that cost is $5 per household per year to repair the fluoridation system. Now the annual cost of fluoridate is $14,000. So for round numbers, let's say that cost goes up to $20,000 a year. So take that $20,000 and divide by our 20,000 customers, and that's less than $1 per household. So to repair and fluoridate the water over the next 5 years is a $5 repair per household plus a $1 to fluoridate the household for a total of $6 per household per year. If there are an average of 2 people per household, I think it's reasonable, then the cost per person is less than $3. So for less than a Big Mac, we can provide safe, fluoridated water that will prevent cavities and improve oral health in our entire community. I say the entire community because that includes children who are most susceptible to cavities. Now, at that city council meeting, there were some people, and even today, that spoke out against fluoridation because fluoride is a neurotoxin. Well, it's not a neurotoxin when it's at the 0.7 milligrams per liter, which is what the CDC has recommended for the level of fluoride in water, and that's at the level at which Madison Utilities has been fluoridating our water. Now, others at a city council meeting said, oh, why don't we just have people just use fluoridated toothpaste? Well, did you know that it's recommended that you not rinse your mouth with water immediately after brushing with fluoridated toothpaste? Instead, you're supposed to spit out the excess toothpaste and wait 10 to 15 minutes before rinsing or drinking anything. This allows the fluoride in the toothpaste to interact with the tooth enamel and strengthen it, helping to prevent cavities. Well, I suspect that 99% of the people in this room do rinse their mouths immediately after brushing their teeth. They do not wait 10 to 15 minutes. So they're not getting that benefit of the fluoride. I also suspect that 99% of the children in our community rinse their mouths immediately after brushing their teeth, thus not benefiting from fluoridated toothpaste. So there are some households in our community who may not have access or be able to afford regular dental checkups. Let's do the right thing and continue fluoridating our water to improve the health and welfare of all our children and all of us in our community. Thank you.
Right.
That's it. Hi. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for letting me come and speak. I appreciate the opportunity. I live in Harvest, but this is an issue that matters very much to me. Fluoride strengthens tooth enamel. Well, the hydroxyapatite in fluoride strengthens tooth enamel. This is not in dispute. What I think is the biggest thing to figure out is what is the optimal way to get that fluoride to the tooth enamel? Is it by swallowing it and introducing it to every cell in our body and hoping that somehow some of it gets into our saliva and then touches the teeth before we swallow it again? In the meantime, doing whatever it does to all the other cells in the body? Is that really the best optimal way? I would say no. It's an indirect way, and it's full of hoping. And there is research that says the benefit of drinking fluoridated water is that we reduce cavities by 1/4 of a cavity over a lifetime. And I stand before you today as someone who has drunk fluoridated water my entire life. My parents were very pro that. They were very excited about that. And I've had 15 cavities in my life, and I think I practice good dental health. Well, I haven't had any cavities in the last 5 years, but that's a different story. I'm sorry, I have a disability, so I have a tremor, so I'm gonna just sit down for real quick. Okay, so the benefit of reducing that 1/4 of a cavity over a lifetime is a trade-off And the actual exposure to fluoride is on par with exposure to lead. And I don't think anybody here would say, well, that's okay, we can just, let's all buy pewter dishes like they made them in colonial America that were half tin and half lead, and let's feed our kids off of pewter plates. We wouldn't do that. We can't even buy paint with lead in it anymore. It was taken out for a good reason. The other question that I would like to ask people is, did you know that fluoride has antimicrobial properties? So what is, by swallowing it, what is this doing to our gut microbiome? And we can't really say that we are a healthy people. We have a lot of health issues in our country. And as far as the appeals to emotion, oh, the poor children who will have cavities if we don't make them drink this toxic substance. You know, we appeals to emotion are interesting and maybe reflective of the person making the appeal, but what we need to think about is we need to apply fluoride directly to the tooth. That's when it makes the impact. This indirect method of introducing it to our entire system is not straightforward or beneficial. And I would also say that I worry about the poor children who cannot live in homes with parents who can afford these very expensive reverse osmosis water treatment systems. It's not fair to not give informed consent to people and just put it in the drinking water. I like how someone talked about water as a medication delivery system that we have not consented to. And so because, yeah, people who are well off, people who are well informed, they're gonna remove the fluoride from their drinking water and they're not gonna give it to their kids. And I'm just gonna toss this in because it's been brought up. I was born in 1960, and I remember when we were trying to get DDT out of use, and I remember a couple who, they made the news. I never knew what happened to them. I've often wondered, but they were taking DDT, swallowing it on purpose to prove that it was not harmful. People will ingest things that are very toxic for some purpose of their own that doesn't make logical sense to the rest of us. So the fact that someone's wants their pregnant wife to drink fluoridated water because there's some tests in the urine of people who have drunk fluoridated water, like, I don't know. That's all I have to say.
Rizzo?
Happy Cinco, everyone.
Hey.
Okay, so I grew up on the north side of Huntsville. I've educated myself. I run multi-million-dollar programs into the billions on one of them, on the Arsenal. And I'm just simply here to, I'm a big proponent of due process. So Madison City, regardless of city council's influence, like Connie and Marla and Renee, regardless of their influence, you cannot abuse your power. So I'm just simply here to say that I'm a big proponent of due process because it prevents those things, regardless of what people say to sway influence. So if anyone wants to seek due process and wants to file a lawsuit or litigate against Madison City, you can contact me. I'm Shema, SHEMA 1267 at Gmail, okay? Because Madison City cannot ignore the risk because there's obviously controversy, there's obviously division, and you just can't do that to people. So just in reference in the federal case that's taken place in California, they did a lot of extensive research, testimony, evidence. So I'm actually following that case right now. And let's see what I want to wrap up with. Anyway, I would also seek, if we did have to file litigation, I would also seek that the plaintiffs be entitled to recovery of their cost of litigation, attorney's fees, expert fees. And I would hate for us to waste taxpayer money in Madison City on a litigation, although this is divisional controversy. So please continue with your planned elimination plan. Thank you for your time. I do like people to understand that dental hygiene is a choice. I have had cavities like crazy. And I grew up, pretty low class, but, thankfully I'm educated and I brush my teeth often, try to reduce soda, candy, chips, all those good things. But thank you for your time. I enjoyed it. Bless you. Thank you.
Did you say Chamberlain?
Yes.
Good evening, board. Also, happy Cinco de Mayo, everyone. Great way to spend it. My name's Jim Chamberlain, and my family lives in Madison City. And we've been a customer of Madison Utilities for 40 years. I may be on the high end with everybody here. And you've done an excellent job. I remember in the 1980s when we rationed our water supply during the summer droughts. So I'm glad we're through with that and have a plentiful, clean water supply now. And right now, you have my family's trust in providing that critical city service. I'd like to speak about what I learned at last Monday's City Council fluoride discussion. And I reviewed Mr. Moore's presentation and many public comments. And I understand Mr. Moore had limited time to prepare, and all it consisted of was a few slides of deteriorating equipment. And I believe it raised more questions than provided answers. So based on what I've learned from that meeting, my recommendation is that we need to study this matter further. We should delay removing fluoride from the water until we've had a full public discussion and review. And it should include a full presentation, not just slides of deteriorating equipment. And it should include input from public health officers, review of the state of the science. We've heard so much conflicting information here tonight, we really can't make a decision. It should include costs, benefits, and risks, and it should include a survey of customer preferences. We really need to do more work. We just haven't done it yet. Now here's what I think. At the council meeting, I heard Mr. Moore's brief presentation and 23 speakers. It was a good discussion, democracy in action, everybody respectful. I counted 15 people in favor of continuing fluoridation and 6 against and 2 neutral. So this very unscientific survey had 70% for and 30% against. Tonight, maybe you're 50-50. Those that spoke for fluoridation, the 70%, they included 2 dentists who have practiced a long time in Madison, and a Hudson Alpha, a genetic scientist. And everybody discussed the rationale for fluoridation, citing CDC, NIH, Alabama Department of Public Health, and ADA current positions, which all support fluoridation at the current level that we're doing, 0.7. And also speakers emphasized the community benefit from fluoridation. And it's clear, our city's dental health will decline if you stick with this decision. Over the next several years, we're going to see a lot more cavities, oral surgeries, and anesthesia procedures on our children and adults. And why do I say that? You can go to the NIH website